Hey everybody, it's Emily Dark Schooling, and today I want to talk about new releases that I'm excited about for the second half of the year. So I've done a few of these videos before, but today I want to focus on what we have left of 2024. So I'm not counting June since it's almost the end of the month. We don't need to talk about June releases, but we're going to start with July and work our way through to December. I've got some tea, I've got my laptop, my notes, so we can get into it. So let's start with July. July is a very release-heavy month, at least for the things that I'm interested in. These are just books that have been on my radar, that I've gotten an ARC for, that I've pre-ordered. I'll let you know, like, my status with each book as we get to it. So starting with July, on the 2nd, we have a new Neal Shusterman coming out called Break to You. And this one he wrote with Barbara Young and Michelle Nolden. And this is a YA contemporary story about kids in, bad circumstances. It says, it's an intense yet tender story of two teens trapped in impossible circumstances and unjust systems, willing to risk everything for love no matter the consequences. So we're following characters who I think are in some kind of like juvenile detention center situation. So it's going to focus around like criminal justice and like how their lives have been affected by the system. It's going to be a romance. It says it's a fast-paced, highly compelling tour de force, exposing what life is like in detention, and it reveals the hearts of two teens who are forced to live in desperate circumstances. I did not pre-order this because I kept dancing back and forth, like I couldn't decide, and so I just didn't. I'm going to try to get it from my library though. I'm hoping they have it. But I'm really curious about it, but I don't know anything about Deborah Young or Michelle Nolden. I don't know, like, who they are, what their writing is like, but I'm intrigued by the premise. Then also out on the 2nd of July, we have We Don't Have Time for This by Brianna Kraft, and this is a YA contemporary as well. And it's about two teens who get involved with like a climate change organization club at school. The girl is very serious and dedicated, and she believes in the cause, and the guy is kind of only doing it to get it on his college applications. He just wants the street cred for being in the club, and I think like they're gonna have a romance. I think he's gonna come to her side of things and that sort of thing. So it just sounds interesting. I'm down for all the climate fiction, the cli-fi. I'm curious to see like what, I don't know this author at all. I don't think I've read anything by Brianna Kraft, but I'm like really intrigued by the premise. So I might try to check this out from my library. A middle grade out on the 2nd of July is Benji Zeb is a Ravenous, Werewolf by Deke Moulton. I've talked about this author before because I have their middle grade that is about vampires, Don't Want to Be Your Monster, which I still haven't read. It's killing me. I need to get to this. But this is their sophomore release. This one is about a werewolf, and it's very Jewish, very much about like coming of age as a Jewish teen, but like also he's a werewolf. So it sounds really cute. It revolves around his bar mitzvah, and it just sounds really cute. I don't know. I didn't pre-order this because I haven't read their first book, and like it's a punishment to me really because I want to get both of them. I want to have this on my shelves, but I cannot let myself purchase it until I have read their first book, Don't Want to Be Your Monster. And the last book that I'm going to talk about that's out on the 2nd is Sleep Like Death by Kaylin Bayron. I've talked about this author before. I've really enjoyed like 2 of her books. I need to read more things. But this one is out on the 2nd, and it is a fantasy. It is a fairy tale retelling of Sleeping Beauty. Don't really know much more than that, honestly. But I'm very curious. I've never read any of their fantasy yet. I've read You're Not Supposed to Die Tonight, which was like a contemporary horror slasher kind of book. And I've read My Dear Henry, which is a retelling of Jekyll and Hyde, and I loved both of those books. So I really need to read more Kaylin Barron. Okay, moving on to the 9th of July, we have Bury Your Gaze by Chuck Tingle. I don't even know what this one's about. I literally just hit pre-order the second I heard about it because I loved Camp Damascus when I read it last year, and I was like, yes, give me more of that. So, what is Bury Your Gaze? I'm not even sure. I think it might have to do with Hollywood. Yeah, okay, so it says, after years of trying to make it, his big moment is here, an Oscar nomination, and the executives at the studio for his long-running streaming series know just the thing to kick his career to the next level. Kill off your gay characters for the algorithm in the upcoming season finale. And, of course, Misha refuses, and I don't know what's going to happen here, but I am so intrigued. Like, Camp Damascus was really weird, really fun, just like a really good time with an interesting message. And I feel like this is going to be this very similar to that. So yeah, I'm very much looking forward to reading this. Okay, then also on the 9th is a middle grade called Invisible Isabelle. This caught my eye because it's written by Sally J. Pla, and I read one of her books at the beginning of the year. She was, her book was one of the finalists. Yeah, The Fire, the Water, and Maudie McGinn was a finalist for Sybil's, so I read that at the beginning of the year, really enjoyed it, and so I've kind of put her name on my list of things to look for, and so when I saw her new book, I was intrigued. This one is middle grade, about an introverted girl named Isabelle Bean who learns to speak up to her quiet worries. And it says it's a very thoughtful, earnest story. It looks like a very cute, contemporary for kids who like more introspective, real life kind of thing. So I don't really know anything about this one yet. I literally just heard about it yesterday and I put it on my list, but I'm definitely going to try to read it. I have a feeling it'll be nominated for Sybil's, so I'm hoping I will get to read it soon. Okay, then on the 16th, we have The Bright Sword by Love Grossman, which I'm so excited about. Love Grossman wrote the Magicians trilogy, which I loved. That was one of my favorite fantasy series that I've read in the last 5 to 10 years, and I just want more of that. So when I saw he had a new book out, I immediately pre-ordered it. This is nothing like The Magicians, though, I don't think, because this is a more medievally historical kind of story. This is about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, but it's set after Arthur has died, and we're following some of his misfit knights. We're following characters like Nimue, who are just on the outskirts of the Round Table, and I just think this is gonna be a good time. Then also on the 16th we have I Was a Teenage Slasher by Stephen Graham Jones. This is another one I'm on the fence with pre-ordering. I just don't know what to do. I have a love-hate relationship with his books. Sometimes I get into them and they're such great stories and I just love them. And then sometimes I try to read one of his books and my brain just cannot process it for whatever reason. So I didn't get into his last trilogy, which was all about a slasher. I can't even think of the name of it. My Heart is a Chainsaw or something like that. My brain just could not consume that story. I don't know why. I keep thinking I'm going to come back to it and try again, but I haven't yet. This is a standalone, and all I know is that it's a story about a slasher, but it's told from the perspective of the person doing the murdering, which I find really interesting, really intriguing. I really want to read this. Then also about on the 16th, this one I just found out about, and I was so excited when I heard about it. I want to read this so bad. This is a nonfiction, and it's called The Genius of Judy, How Judy Blume Rewrote Childhood for All of Us, and it's by Rochelle Bergstein. This is a look at her work, her life, her cultural impact on society. I think we all have a Judy Blume book that just stuck with us. For me, it was Tales of a Fourth Grade Nothing. I remember my 4th grade teacher read that book aloud to us in class, and it was the highlight of my elementary education. I still think about that book. I loved that story. I love how my teacher got us all really into it, and she did voices. It was great. I'm really excited to get a hold of this. This is another one that I'm hoping my library will have it, because can't bring myself to pay full price for it right now. I'm trying so hard not to buy all of the things. Out on the 23rd of July is This Opening Sky by Kelly Holman and Charlotte Watson Sherman. I really don't know much about this, but the cover is gorgeous. Like, it's beautiful. This is a middle grade historical fiction, and I think it's set just after the Civil War. It's sort of like an unlikely friendship happening in the aftermath of war. That's really all I know. Two girls joining forces and heading north to find their families after the war has ended. And that cover, though, that cover is beautiful. And then out on July 30th is Maria, a novel of Maria von Trapp. And this is by Michelle Moran. I have the ARC for this, and I'm really excited to read it. I loved The Sound of Music when I was a kid. That was one of my favorite movies growing up. I knew all of the songs. I love this so much that we're getting a book about Maria. I think it could be interesting. So it just says, Maria von Trapp, you know the name, the iconic songs, but do you know her real story? This dramatic novel, based on the woman glamorized in The Sound of Music, brings Maria to life as never before. And I think we're starting like in the 50s when they're putting the musical together, and like Maria's reacting to it and that sort of thing. I don't even know, but I read something else by Michelle Moran. What have I read by her? Yeah, I read Rebel Queen by Michelle Moran and really, really liked her writing style. So I feel like this could potentially be really, really good. Moving on to August. There's not as many things out. Okay, starting on the 6th, we have 3 books that I pre-ordered. The first one is The Seventh Veil of Salome by Silvia Moreno Garcia. You might remember her from Mexican Gothic, which we read for book club a few years ago, and I really loved that. I like have a love-hate relationship with her books. Some of them work really well for me, like Mexican Gothic. Some of them not at all. So like, I don't know. This one sounds like it might be a book for me though. This one is about a woman who is like a legendary film heroine, but the real drama is behind the scenes. Like, I loved The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, so I have a feeling this is going to be like that. Yeah, so it says, 1950s Hollywood, every actress wants to play Salome, the star-making role in a big-budget movie about the legendary woman whose story has inspired artists since ancient times. So when the film's mercurial director casts Vera Larios, an unknown Mexican ingenue, in the lead role, she quickly becomes the talk of the town. Vera also becomes an object of envy for Nancy Hartley, a bit player whose career has stalled and who will do anything to win the fame she believes she richly deserves. So we're following these 2 actresses and how they're kind of pitted against each other, and it sounds like it's going to be a really good time. I love this cover. It's beautiful too. So like I'm looking forward to that. Then we have And So I Roar by Abby Daré. This is the sequel to The Girl with the Louding Voice. I've already talked about how excited I am to read this. The Girl with the Louding Voice is about Aduni, who is a Nigerian girl who is faced with many, many obstacles in her path, preventing her from getting the education that she so desperately desires. And this is the continuation of her story. I'm really looking forward to that. Then we have The House Where Death Lives, which is a YA anthology. And I pre-ordered this kind of on a whim, but I love death stories. Like, I love stories that are focused around like the concept and idea of death. And so when I saw there was a whole collection of them, like, that just got me excited. So this is a bunch of different authors. It's edited by Alex Brown. And there's like just a bunch of stories that are all like horror or like some kind of a dark, like gothic thing. We have A Dance to the Death, a girl who's just as monstrous as H.H. Holmes, a hallway that's constantly changing, and Hungry. All of these stories all exist in the same place within the frame of a particular house that isn't bound by the laws of time or space. So like every story in this anthology is focused around the same house. There's just like different times and eras and whatnot, and like different things happening. So I'm really intrigued. I think this sounds like it's gonna be great. Okay, out on August 13th, we have Ash's Cabin. This is by Jen Wang. This is a graphic novel, I think, and it's a story, another climate change story. It says Ash has always felt alone. Adults ignore the climate crisis. Other kids Ash's age are more interested in pop stars and the popularity contests than in fighting for change. Even Ash's family seems to be sleepwalking through life. The only person who ever seemed to get Ash was their grandpa, Edwin. Before he died, he used to talk about building a secret cabin deep in the California wilderness. Did he ever build it? What if it's still there, waiting for him to come back, or for Ash to find it? So I think Ash is going to go on this like quest to go find the cabin and try to like live a life that they feel would be better for the environment, I think is what's happening here. So I'm intrigued. I like stories like this. I love graphic novels, so I think I'm going to enjoy this one. And then my last August new release is My Salty Mary from the Lady Janie series. We're on the Marys right now. I think this is the last of the Marys. This is by Cynthia Hand, Brody Ashton, and Jody Meadows. I am like, I keep thinking I should not get this. I should cancel it. I currently own all of the books in this series. I've only read the first one. And I liked it a lot. I just haven't gotten to the other ones for whatever reason. This one is like a pirate historical fantasy remix, which marries The Little Mermaid with the life and times of the infamous lady pirate Mary Read. So I'm really intrigued. I say that about all of them. They all sound like a thing I'm gonna love. I haven't picked it up. So I do have this on pre-order because I've just been like automatically buying them every year. I just don't know when I'm gonna get to it. Moving on now to September. So we have a whole lot of things out on September 10th. We have a middle grade contemporary called Not Another Banned Book by Dana Allison Levy. I have the ARC for this, so I'm hoping to get to this relatively soon. This is a story about a bunch of kids getting together and fighting against book bannings. That's really all I know. That's probably all you need to know. It sounds good. Then probably my most anticipated book of the whole year is out on the 10th of September, and that is Somewhere Beyond the Sea by T.J. Klune. This is the sequel to The House on the Cerulean Sea, which I love. That was one of my favorite books when I read it that year, and it's still like a book that I just like adored. And so this is a sequel. I have no idea like if we needed a sequel, but if he's gonna give me one, I will read it. And I'm excited because the like first editions when they come out are gonna have sprayed edges, and I'm a sucker for that. I don't know. Do you guys appreciate sprayed edges on books? Like, I think that's beautiful. So I'm looking forward to that. This is a story about like what happens after we conclude The House on the Cerulean Sea. We're following Arthur Parnassus, who is the headmaster of a strange orphanage on a distant and peculiar island, and he hopes to soon be the adoptive father to the 6 magical and so-called dangerous children who live there. But like, I'm not going to read the whole synopsis because I don't want to. But like, I'm excited for this. The House on the Cerulean Sea was like just like reading a hug. It was like the book was hugging me. It was so cozy, so like heartfelt and feel good. And I don't read a lot of things like that. Most of what I read is sad, or like really intense. So I enjoy that I have this coming my way soon. Okay, also out on the 10th is So Thirsty by Rachel Harrison, which I have not pre-ordered yet, but I might. The only reason I haven't is because like I'm sure that if I pre-order it, I'm gonna get it in a Nightworms. So like I'm kind of waiting to see what the Nightworms is gonna look like around that time so that I don't accidentally have 2 copies. But this is she writes cozy horror is what I would call it. Like it's very like Hallmark inspired, where it's like this cozy thing, but like there's also werewolves or witches, or in this case vampires, and like I want to see what that's like, because I feel like she made me like a werewolf story, which is just not a thing I've really ever enjoyed. So for me to enjoy a werewolf, like, what is she going to do with vampires? I need to know. So also on the 10th, I have Songs for the Brokenhearted. This is by Ayelet Sabari, and I have the arc of this I got from NetGalley. First, the cover is beautiful. This is about a young Yemeni Israeli woman who learns of her mother's secret romance in a dramatic journey through lost family stories, revealing the unbreakable bond between a mother and a daughter. And it's a debut. I love family sagas. I love stories about like people finding out something like really juicy about their past and like unraveling a tale. This is set in two timelines. We're following a 1950s timeline and a 1995 timeline. So I have high hopes for this. It sounds great. Then also on the 10th, we have a new book from Jasmine Warga called A Strange Thing Happened in Cherry Hall. If you have read A Rover Story and enjoyed that, let me let you in on this new book coming out, because this sounds great too. It says it's an extraordinary story about two friends, a ghost, a missing painting, and a turtle named Agatha. The perfect next read for fans of the Swifts, Kate DiCamillo, and Aaron Entrada Kelly. So we're following a couple of kids who are looking for a missing painting. There's something to do with a ghost, a turtle. The turtle, I think, will probably have their own like chapter perspectives, which I love when authors do that. Give me the weird character perspectives. I enjoy that. So this sounds really cute. Then on the 17th of September, I have the arc for Find Her by Ginger Reno, and this says 5 years, 3 months, and 12 days. That's how long Ren's mother has been missing. So this is a story about an indigenous girl trying to find out what happened to her mother. I guess her mother was one of hundreds of Native Americans considered missing or murdered in Oklahoma. Sometimes it seems like Ren and her grandmother are the only people still looking. Even more frustrating, Ren's overprotective father won't even talk about it. So Ren refuses to give up, and she dedicates her time to finding what happened to her mother. I am uncertain if this is YA or middle grade, but I feel like it's YA. Yeah, this is a sensitive young Cherokee girl who yearns to find her mother, while also navigating a chilling town mystery, new friendship, and a family in need of healing. So it sounds like it's going to be really good. My second most anticipated book, the second half of the year, comes out on September 17th. And it is When We Flew Away by Alice Hoffman. This is a prequel to Anne Frank's diary. And I've said it before, if this was any other author, I don't know that I would want to read it. But Alice Hoffman, I think she's qualified. Like, I trust her with Anne Frank's story. Anne Frank has always been like a really important person to me. Like, I grew up reading her diary. I felt like I knew her. And so like, I'm really curious to see what she's going to do here. I will definitely be reading this. Like, I'm very excited. I got my hands on an arc of it, which I'm still just in shock that I was given the arc to read. So I'm very excited to pick this up. Okay, also out in September on the 17th is Night Owls by A.R. Vishny. And honest to God, I want this for the cover. Like, I saw the cover before I knew anything else. I was ready to hit pre-order. But it's a paranormal YA romance debut steeped in folklore, two Estries, which are owl-shifting female vampires from Jewish tradition, face New York's monstrous underworld to save the girl one of them loves with the help from the boy one of them fears before they are all of them lost forever. So I have to have this. Like, I need this book. It sounds fantastic. Like, I'm really, really intrigued. But like that cover, That cover is stunning and I love it. Okay, also on the 17th, we have a middle grade from Cynthia Lightich Smith called On a Wing and a Tear. And this said, a living legend roosting in the backyard, an unmissable game, a hair-raising mystery, a road trip full of adventure and danger, and all the overlapping circles that connect us throughout creation. So we're following a character named Melanie, or Mel Roberts, and Ray Halfmoon, who may be from different indigenous nations, but the friends have become like siblings since the Robertses moved in with the Halfmoons, and they soon welcome a distinguished guest. Great-grandfather Bat, whose wing is injured, has taken refuge in their old oak tree. It just sounds like it's going to be good. I've enjoyed her books in the past, and I think this one sounds like it's going to be just as good. Okay, this one was a splurge. I pre-ordered it. The price has come down. I hope it stays down, because when I pre-ordered it, it was very expensive. And that is The Small and the Mighty, 12 Unsung Americans Who Changed the Course of History from the Founding to the Civil Rights Movement by Sharon McMahon. I don't know if you guys follow Sharon McMahon on Instagram, but I find her so amazing. She's very helpful for helping people understand what's happening with the government, understanding how our history is shaping our present, and that sort of thing. So when I found out she had a book coming out, I got excited and I immediately pre-ordered it. So I'm looking forward to this. I love a good nonfiction history book that's going to teach me about new interesting people maybe I've never heard of. So I don't really know too much more besides that it sounds like exactly the kind of thing I want to read. Will it end up in the level 12 update? Perhaps. I feel like it could be a good fit there. Okay, moving on now to October. As we move through the months, there will be less and less things because I feel like not a lot comes out at the end of the year. At least nothing that I'm specifically looking for. But there are a few books in October that I'm curious about. So I've pre-ordered The Forbidden Book by Sasha Lamb. So I read When the Angels Left the Old Country and really enjoyed that. So when I saw they had a new book coming out, I needed it. And then I read the synopsis and I needed it even more. So it's called The Forbidden Book. It says, Dybbuk's illegal printing, a genderqueer lesbian with a knife, set against a backdrop of literary censorship and growing Jewish political consciousness. Sydney Taylor and Stonewall Award-winning Sasha Lamb's sophomore novel is a soaring exploration of identity, survival, and ultimately hope. So we're following a character who is running away the night before their wedding and taking on a male identity of Isar Jacobs. And then soon becomes clear that there is already a person with that name and that a lot of people want them dead. So it's a mistaken identity situation. This sounds excellent. And plus, look how pretty. Like, ugh. This next book. Maybe my third most anticipated. I've been really excited about this one. I stumbled upon it and I immediately hit pre-order. I'm so excited. It's called American Scary, A History of Horror from Salem to Stephen King and Beyond, and this is by Jeremy Dauber. You guys, I've been wanting to write a history of horror unit for forever. I love horror movies. I've been dabbling in introducing stuff to my kids for years. I've really gotten my youngest into horror. And I keep picking things up that I think would work for creating a unit, and I haven't liked anything. So when I heard about this, I got so excited because this sounds like exactly what I'm looking for. I want a book that will explore the history of horror, but also bring in why we love horror, what it is about it that appeals to people. I want it to be like a film school kind of situation. So it says, from acclaimed author of American comics and Jewish comedy comes a sweeping and entertaining narrative that details the rise and enduring grip of horror in American literature, cinema, and ultimately culture, from the taut, terrifying stories of Edgar Allan Poe to the grisly, lingering films of Jordan Peele. So, like, this is exactly what I want. I need this to be amazing. I need this to be the thing, because I really want to write that unit. I just need a spine. And I feel like this might be the thing. So, fingers crossed. Okay, now out on October 8th, we have The Love Elixir of Augustus Stern. I have an arc for this. This is by Linda Cohen Loigman. I read one of her books years ago. Have not read anything since then, but they have another book that I own. And then when I saw the cover of this, I was like, woo, pretty. So I ended up getting the arc. This is about a woman who's turning 80, and she's newly retired pharmacist and living in an active senior community in southern Florida, and she unexpectedly crosses paths with Irving Rifkin, the delivery boy from her father's old pharmacy, and the man who broke her heart 60 years earlier. So I think we're like going back into her like history and learning about this like romance that happened, and I don't even really know more than that, but it just sounds like how often do you come across books about an 80-year-old woman? Like, I'm intrigued. Another book I'm really excited about. We have a new book with two of my favorite authors writing it. It is called The Bletchley Riddle, and it is a stunning collaboration between award-winning and best-selling authors Ruta Sepetys and Steve Sheinkin. It's a middle-grade historical fiction adventure following two siblings at Bletchley Park, the home of World War II codebreakers, as they try to unravel a mystery surrounding their mother's disappearance. So I think this is historical fiction written by two of my favorite authors, so like I could not be more excited about this. I tried to get the arc, and it did not work out, and I'm still sad about it. It's okay, though. I pre-ordered it. I'm going to have it. Then on October 15th, we have a book that I'm super intrigued by, American Rapture by C.J. Lead. I own Mayfly, which I really need to read. Like, that is a book that I'm probably going to be picking up in the very near future because I'm so curious about it. And they have a new book coming out, and I really want this. So I need to read Mayfly, see if like their writing style works for me, see if I want to read more from them, and if so, this is getting a pre-order. This is a scorching new apocalyptic novel. Neil Gaiman's American Gods meets The Last of Us in this epic, sweeping story about the end of the world as we know it. A virus is spreading across America, transforming the infected and making them feral with lust. Sophie, a good Catholic girl, must traverse this hellscape of the Midwest to try to find her family while the world around her burns. Along the way, she discovers there are far worse fates than dying a virgin. The end times are coming. I just think this is going to be great. I love this cover so freaking much. Much more than Mayfly. Mayfly is a very off-putting cover. This is stunning. Okay, moving on to November. I only have two books. We have Where the Library Hides by Isabelle Ibanez, which is out on the 5th. And this is the sequel to What the River Knows. This is a historical fiction YA romance. It's with a little bit of magic, and it's set in Egypt in the 1800s. It's very Victorian, but we're following a character from Bolivia. So she's come to Egypt to kind of figure out what happened to her parents. Her parents have died in Egypt while they were working, and she doesn't really know why they were there or what they were doing or what happened to them, so she's come to like find out. And the first book ends on this wacky, wild cliffhanger, and I really just need to know. I need to know what the heck happened there, because I immediately, I remember closing the book and just being like, what am I supposed to do with that? So I've been anticipating the sequel so I can finally find out what I'm supposed to do with that, because that was just like a rude cliffhanger. Then on the 12th, we have The Davenports, More Than This by Crystal Marquis. I really like The Davenports. I thought it was a really great book. I've heard like nobody talk about it. It's a story about a family, a black family in like the early 1900s. I think they're in Chicago. And it's kind of, if you like Little Women, if you like stories like Pride and Prejudice, if you like stories about like a group of sisters and like their romances and their lives and like that kind of thing, I think you'd like this. So I'm really curious to see what she does with the sequel, because I really enjoyed the first one. Then December, we have 3 books to talk about. On the 3rd, we have The Voyage Home by Pat Barker. So I got the ARC for this. I did not expect that. I just kind of requested it on a whim, and I got it. So this is a book, I think, about Cassandra. It's another mythology retelling. That's kind of what they do. And this is the 3rd installment of their Women of Troy series. I have not read the other 2. That's why I did this on a whim. The cover is beautiful. I want to read their books. So now I have the 3rd one. Luckily, it's not like a trilogy where I need to know things. Like, I already know my Greek mythology pretty well. I think I can follow it. So, but this one I think is focused on Cassandra. Then on December 10th, I'm so excited that I got this ARC. It's called I Made It Out of Clay by Beth Kander. This is a Hanukkah book, and we're following a Jewish woman who creates a golem out of desperation and unearths the greatest fear she's ever faced. And she creates a boyfriend. She makes herself a man. Now, I remember seeing a thing about like what we wish that they would create, like Hanukkah TV like movies. You know, we get so many Christmas movies. What if we could have some Hanukkah movies? And somebody wanted, and I think they called it I Made Him Out of Clay or something like that. But like they cast Paul Rudd as the like boyfriend golem, and I've never gotten that out of my head. I'm like, please, I need this. I need to see this movie. So when I saw this book, I immediately was like, okay, please let me have this. I need to read it. So it sounds ridiculous. It's stupid and silly, and I am so excited to have finally a holiday book that I can enjoy this holiday season. The last book I'm going to talk about is out on Christmas Eve. It's out on December 24th. And it is called The Resurrectionist. And it is by A. Ray Dunlap. And I think I heard about this from Mother Horror, Sadie Hartman. And I immediately went and looked it up and pre-ordered it. First of all, this cover is absolutely stunning. I want to hang it on my wall. It's beautiful. Second of all, give me all of the weird gothic stories. Like, I want all of that. This is a decadently macabre, dark, and twisty gothic debut set in the 19th century Scotland, when real-life serial killers Burke and Hare terrorize the streets of Edinburgh as a young medical student is lured into this illicit underworld of body snatching. Yes. I want this so bad. Like, I'm so excited about it. This is historical fiction, true crime, dark academia, all intertwining in a harrowing tale of murder, greed, and the grisly origins of modern medicine. I loved Anatomy of Love Story, which is also set in the same time period in Scotland. We're talking body snatching and like cadavers and all that. Oh, yes, yes, yes. So, very much looking forward to this. Merry Christmas to me. So those are the books that I am looking forward to reading the rest of this year. Will I get to all of them in 2024? Not terribly likely, but I'm hoping to get to a lot of them this year. Let me know down in the comments what books you are the most excited to read the second half of 2024. Let me know if you're excited for any of these, or if there's anything I didn't know about that should be on my radar. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time. Happy reading. Bye.